Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, so today I'm going to be showing you the deck that won a very big tournament in Japan. The first champion in Japan of 2019 season, really the first big tournament in Japan of the season, 1,200 plus players. And the winning deck was a Malamar deck, a fairly unusual Malamar deck. We will look in a moment at all the different attackers that it actually played. But first, I do need to spend a moment or two gloating and reminding you that we know nothing about the Pokemon trading card game. I profile every relevant new card on this channel very deliberately, so we have all the information. And a little while ago, I did a profile about the new Onix card. And ladies and gentlemen, the hate that I got from some people was unreal. 4 energies is not viable. Leave it to us to be able to talk for a card with a single vanilla attack for 10 minutes. I'd rather use Burning Shadows Solrock if I really wanted to beat Zoroark GX with a crappy basic card. 40 if you have a Stadium plus 20 from Strong Energy, blah blah blah. Easier than charging Onix, it's still a bad idea. Sure, it can take out a Zoroark Ross, but that energy attachment and resources needed to get that energy on it is too awkward. I don't see how this sees much play at all. Too much of an investment for something that can be knocked out before it's even ready. Great counter, all I see is a way too expensive attack. Would rather have a 60 damage attack for a DCE. This is ridiculous. You know very well this card will see no play. Why use that much energy on something that will obviously be KO'd the next turn? 4 energy will not work, period. And oh my god, the clickbait. You not only falsely called it a counter, but you covered the attack cost in the thumbnail. Go look at any of my thumbnails. They all have the very same basic pattern. There's clearly nothing dodgy going on there. All those people were wrong. And the reason that they were wrong is because they're short-sighted. I told you that Onix would be a good card, and the reason was it's a basic Pokemon that can knock out a Zoroark for colorless energy. So in any deck that can accelerate energy, it's great. I am sitting here expecting apologies from all those people, many of whom did not follow the cardinal rule of be nice, because this Onix was played in a deck that won a tournament with 1,200 people in Japan. It's a good card. And seriously, ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop this idea of if it's not completely on the face of it an absolutely amazing card, it's garbage. We need to open our minds just a little bit to other cards, because consistently the best players are bringing stuff that's a little bit different. Okay, there goes the Onix rant. So this is, at its heart, a Malamar deck. You can, once per turn, per Malamar, take a Psychic Energy from the discard and attach it to one of your benched Pokemon. It accelerates energy beautifully, but there's actually 2 other things we've got here to help us to accelerate energy in this deck. First of all, we have a Lunala Prism Star. Now, I know not a lot of people agree with me, and I can't be too upset about that. I personally am a fan of playing one Lunala Prism Star in any Psychic deck. It's so good at accelerating energy. You get to attach one Psychic from your discard to your Pokemon for every Pokemon that your opponent has in play. Very good energy acceleration, although it does have an awkward retreat cost. But it's very good, especially if you can't get your Malamar working. And then we just see a real hodgepodge of attackers here. It's kind of all over the place in terms of attackers. If we look, there's no main attacker. There's 2 Pokemon that 2 copies are being played of, and that's about it. It's a weird deck, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very weird deck. But I'll tell you something for nothing. It totally works. So there are some here with which we're quite familiar. So we have got Tapu Koko. And look, there's no lightning energy played here. So this is purely for flying flip. The deck does play double colorless energy, and it does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. It's good for spreading damage, especially in the early game. Then we have one copy of Necrozma GX. Now, in terms of Necrozma here, we have got the GX attack. Although you technically can use Tapu Lele's GX attack here, because you're playing Lightning Energy, this is clearly your GX attack of choice. Free colorless energy, 100 damage to each EX and GX in play. So between Necrozma and Tapu Koko, and spoiler alert for in a moment, we are playing Shrine of Punishment here, as are so many decks, and then all of a sudden we've got quite a nice little spread thing going on here, which is very nice indeed. We then have a single copy of the aforementioned Onix. Onix is here for the exact reason I laid out in my video a little while ago. It's got fairly nice HP, but really, for colorless energy, it does 120, it can KO a Zoroark. And it doesn't really matter how much energy it is. You're playing a 4/4 Necrozma line. You're playing double colorless energy. Looking at this Onix and going, oh, well, it's 4 energy, that's a bit expensive, is really misinterpreting what this deck is about. Yes, if you were just playing some deck with no energy acceleration, this would be super expensive and completely not viable. But between Malamar, Lunala Prism Star, and double colorless energy, all of a sudden we're looking at this, or at least we should be looking at this and going, oh, actually, that's not too bad. We can pay this. It's a decent attacker in its own right. The problem is you do 120 and it means you're actually 10 damage shy of KOing something like a Buzzwole, for instance, but you can get a Garbodor. And of course, a lot of your Pokemon are weak to Psychic, which means you don't really want to be sticking in a Necrozma out against a Garbodor. So this is actually a pretty good tech against that. It's not just for Zoroark, although clearly Zoroark is the best thing to use this against. And then we see Shining Arceus, yet another card, where I made a video about it and the comment section is full of comments with people saying how bad it is. Why is a god of the Pokemon world so meh in card form? I mean, the real difference here is I didn't think this was a very good card. I think I gave it between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. But it's just made it into a deck that won a tournament with 1,200 people in. Maybe we should take it seriously. Firstly, as long as it's active, you prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon by your opponent's attacks. So it means if you come across something like a Tapu Koko or a Necrozma, you'll be okay. But the attack here, 4 energy, 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Yes, it's expensive, but remember what I said about Onix. Between Solgaleo, Malamar, and double colorless energy, this is not a regular 4 energy attack. And at this stage, you're probably starting to see a theme. Tapu Koko spreads damage. Necrozma spreads damage. Arceus spreads damage. Shrine of Punishment puts 1 damage counter on each EX and GX between turns. Spreads damage. Oh yeah, and a couple of the Giratina. Now, to be fair, I said this was going to break the format, and a lot of people agreed with me. You put it in the discard, and then when you put it from the discard onto the bench, it puts 2 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon, 1 each, onto 2 Pokemon. It's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not too bad in terms of getting a little bit of extra damage on there. Of course, because it is a psychic type, and you're playing Malamar, you can use this as a real attacker here. Free energy 130, though you do have to put 4 damage counters on one of your Pokemon. And okay, it's not an amazing attack, but it's a single prize Pokemon, and honestly, by the time you spread with everything else, 130 should be enough to KO almost anything. Plus, imagine you come across something like a baby Buzzwole, hey Nick, and you chuck this out. This is good against stuff like that. 130 is good. So against non-GXs, you can roll with stuff like Giratina and Onix. And against GXs, or basically anything, just spread. Between Shining Arceus, Tapu Koko, Necrozma, and Shrine of Punishment, you've got a lot of spreading options. Now, in terms of energy here, a couple double colorless for Tapu Koko. The others will use them, but generally in the mid to late game, you've got your Malamar up, and of course, you're playing a bunch of Psychic Energy. Now, in terms of the trainers here, we're not going to go through them in great detail, but there are a few things that jump out that I would like to share. First of all, spell tag. 4 spell tag. And if you remember what spell tag does at this stage, you probably understand it perfectly. It's a tool card. You attach it to a psychic Pokemon, and if it's KO'd by damage from one of your opponent's attacks, you put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. Yeah, sure, your opponent can field blower it. Fine. But they might not have a field blower. And if they don't have a field blower, you get to put an extra 4 damage counters on the field. And remember what I said about the fact that this deck spreads a whole bunch of damage? Yeah, that's pretty gosh darn good. We obviously see Mysterious Treasure here because this is a largely psychic deck, so Mysterious Treasure just becomes a phenomenal search card. You're still playing Ultra Ball, discard 2 card search for any Pokemon, but being able to discard 1 card and search for a psychic is great. The other thing that should stand out here is the supporter line. Once again, and this has been a theme in the decks we're talking about from Japan, still no copycat. Japanese players, at least the top ones, are not playing copycat. It's just not happening. It's too easy to play around. We do see Tate and Liza here. I've been really pushing Tate and Liza instead of Copycat. It's way too early to tell. In Japan, at the moment, early season, they're going Tate and Liza, and also Lily, which is not a card I was giving anywhere near enough love to. But in Japan at the moment, it's Lily and Tate and Liza. It is not Copycat. But we also see TV Reporter here. Yeah, TV Reporter. Who was the last person saying TV Reporter was a good card that was going to see a lot of play? Because it wasn't me, and I'm pretty bullish on most cards. But it makes sense in this deck. Draw 3 cards, then discard a card from your hand, which is great because you get the cards before you discard. So if you don't have the one you want to discard, wait till you've drawn 3 cards. And then, of course, you want Psychic Energy in a discard for Malamar. And you want to put Giratina in the discard pile. So actually, TV Reporter becomes a really, really good card here. I love this deck. I would not have come up with this deck list. I make a lot of decks. I was never going to come up with this deck list. It was never going to happen. I mean, sure, we've all thought about using Giratina with Necrozma and Tapu Koko in a Malamar deck. That is not exactly the weirdest thing ever. But then adding in an Onix and a Shining Arceus, TV Reporter and Spell Tag? Really? If anyone had this deck list built, I would love to see a screenshot of your list. Because honestly, this weirded me out. 1,200 player tournament, and this is what won. That's just weird, ladies and gentlemen. It's just weird, and I love it. By the way, I'm not actually angry about the Onix thing, but the croakiness at the moment is making me sound way more aggro than I would otherwise. But seriously, we all need to start thinking more about these underplayed cards. Because Onix was a card no one thought was good, and Shining Arceus was a card that no one thought was good. Except this dude that just went and won a 1,200 player tournament in Japan. Yeah. And go on then, let's share one comment about Spell Tag. Well, this is a fun and lovely card. However, the cards that are used in Malamar right now don't need it. Whoopsie doodle, ladies and gentlemen. Whoopsie doodle. That was actually a very polite comment from a very lovely man, but my point still stands. We know nothing about the Pokemon trading card game, and a very unusual deck just won a tournament in Japan, and I'm delighted, because I don't know about you, but anytime I get the chance to look at and talk about a completely new deck that I never saw coming, oh, it makes me happy, ladies and gentlemen. It makes me so happy. But now I want to hear from you guys. Did you see this deck coming? Did you have something similar to this brewing? Or are you as surprised as I am about this deck? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And if you're one of the people that was really rude about Onix, because seriously, I got some really, really rude messages when I made that Onix video. So if you are one of those people, I'll take my apologies in the comment section too. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.